Good morning. My name is Carl Simmons. I'm a senior horticulturalist here at Norfolk Botanical. Today we're in the Kaufman Hydrangea Garden and we're going to be talking about some hydrangeas. So I normally give a class every year on hydrangeas, but because of the current situation we're going to adjust and make a video to talk about the different types of hydrangeas that we have in our collection and some basic tips and tricks to care for them. So here we have a big leaf hydrangea, also known as Hydrangea Macrophylla. This is one of the most common hydrangeas you're going to see in the landscape. They're very easy to grow. They need a good amount of shade in your garden. If they're in too much sun, they're going to get cooked. There'll be some more disease problems, especially in the summertime. But they are a very unique plant because they can change the color of their bloom with the pH of the soil. And we like to do that here where we have a blue specific bed and a red specific bed. And the way that we keep the blue bed blue is that we add aluminum sulfate, and the sulfate part of that lowers the pH, and then the aluminum then is taken up into the plant, and that's why it's blue. So one of the trickiest things about hydrangeas is understanding what kind of hydrangea you have, because that affects how you're going to prune it. So the Hydrangea Macrophylla, the big leaf hydrangeas, they bloom on old wood. So you need to be very specific to how you prune it, because you could be pruning out all of your flowers for the next year. So old wood basically means when this plant goes dormant, it'll set its buds. And then those specific buds have to break out, and then they will bloom for your next season. If because of weather or disease problems, your hydrangea kind of dies back to the ground and it's a macrophylla, you're not going to have blooms for the next year. So here we have another Hydrangea Macrophylla. This one's a little bit bigger and it has a different flower form. So the one that we saw previously was a mop head, but this is considered a lace cap. It's all about what you want as a shrub. I mean, some people think this is much more delicate and has a different texture, and the mop heads have a really big, bold stand of color. But I also wanted to show you, because I talked previously about the pH changing the color. If your hydrangea is a white colored variety, the pH will not change the color of your flower. If it's a white variety, you're going to have a white flower consistently. When pruning Hydrangea Macrophyllas, the best time to prune them is directly after they're blooming, so middle of summer, or in the middle of winter when they're completely dormant. You can do them either way, but I like to do it in the middle of summer because all the leaf canopy is fully there, so I know which branches to take out so I won't leave giant holes. But the main reason you want to prune a hydrangea is for disease control, so the more airflow that can get into the bottom of the crown and through the whole shrub will help with diseases, and for shape, because sometimes they can get a little unruly. It'll help bring them back down. But it's very important to prune macrophyllas at the right time so you're not pruning off next year's flowers. Here we have a new type of hydrangea. This is the oak leaf hydrangea, Hydrangea Quercifolia. This is one of our native hydrangeas. It's native to the southeast part of the United States, but this guy's a real bulletproof plant. He can take up to full sun to part shade. It's definitely recommended not to be in full cooking sun because that could really kind of stress him out or make him not look as as pretty. So oak leaf hydrangeas bloom the same way that macrophyllas do. So they bloom on old wood. So just that means that whatever buds they set in the fall when they go dormant have to break in the spring, and that's where your flowers are. So pruning is important when the timing of it. It's best to prune right after they flower, so kind of middle of summer, the middle of July into August is a great time. But luckily with oak leaf hydrangeas, pruning is not very necessary. They don't have many diseases, so you're not pruning for diseases. You're generally just kind of pruning for shape because sometimes these can get kind of unruly and you're going to need to kind of contain them. So here we have our third and final type of hydrangea that we're going to be talking about today. This is the Hydrangea Paniculata, also known as the tree hydrangea. As you can see, and by the name, it is much larger than the other two. Some varieties top out at 25 feet tall. Generally they're about 12 to 15 feet tall. They are a full sun hydrangea. They like to be out in the full sun. They don't do that well in shade. And they also bloom on new wood, which is different than the previous two. Generally for pruning, you don't need to prune for disease because they're fairly disease resistant. You prune for shape and you prune for structure. The biggest problem with paniculatas is that their blooms are so large that they will bend the branch down over and you'll have kind of a weeping looking tree. And the best way to alleviate that is to prune for structure, to prune to give, you know, about 5 to 7 real strong branches and then let them support all the weight of all the flowers. So you can see from this shrub that it's not in bloom yet. It'll probably be another month before this guy starts going, but I definitely recommend coming back to the garden to see our Paniculata display. I think that they're a beautiful tree. When they're in full bloom, there's all sorts of pollinators buzzing all around. And it's a real nice time for there to be a real big flower show in the middle of summer when a lot of things are starting to kind of peter out. All right, well, I think that pretty much wraps it up here. We probably could have continued talking for another 2 to 3 hours out here about the different hydrangeas we have in our collection. And we have some great climbing hydrangeas. We have some great native hydrangeas, things that don't even look like hydrangeas, but they're in the hydrangea family. But you're just gonna have to come to the garden to see them for yourself, and thank you for watching.